make sure that you have an amazing product. Make sure that you have heavy involvement, not just on the marketing side, but heavy involvement in the business from your partner, and make sure you're well capitalized to do it, especially if you're in the food and beverage space. Hey, I'm Chris Gallant, the CEO of Chamberlain Coffee, and you are on Behind the Brand with Brian Elliott.
Everyone, welcome to another episode of the show. Chris, welcome.
Thank you.
I usually ask my guests, how did you get this job?
Ooh, good question. I have been in beverages for 16 years, and so it all sort of led up to this. I've done a lot of things from beer to kombucha to energy and now coffee. Emma and her team were building out the brand and looking for someone who had that experience.
How did you start? Let's go back to the chronology.
Yeah, sure.
16 years, you say?
16 years, yeah.
Okay, seems like only yesterday. How did it all get started? You said off camera you're from Boston.
I'm from Boston, yeah. I went to school in Boston and after school moved to New York and worked for a consulting firm, Bain & Company, which was great. Had an amazing time. And
you did that route?
Yes, I went that route.
Okay.
I went to business school, worked for Bain, and while I was there, started working in their consumer goods group and started working for a large international brewery while I was there. Loved it, had a ton of fun, and left Bain to go work for that brewery.
So usually when you say you went to school in Boston, you went to Harvard then?
I did not. No, I went to MIT.
Okay, the other Boston school. So you're a genius. Okay, got it.
No. I went to the business school there.
Yeah. What is that like?
That was a great experience. It was, I met an incredible set of people that had done so much with their life and had such huge ambitions. I think I had no idea that the world was available to me and all the things that you could do until I went there and I met my classmates and I just saw things people had done, things people wanted to do, and it really changed how I thought about the world.
Is it an entrepreneurial school? It seems like just like a bunch of engineers and brains that go work for maybe Elon or, they're starting a new robotics company or something like that.
Well, a lot of my classmates have started their own company, so a lot of exciting stuff coming out of there.
And then the pathway is usually consulting, right, out of Boston.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're Will Ahmed and you start a company called Whoop that, it's like a Whoop strap thing.
Like this one?
Yeah. So what did you think your path was going to be? You're going to go to consult, and then what was the plan?
I thought I was going to be a partner at a consulting firm, but I fell in love with beverages, and I fell in love with that brewery, which was Heineken. And there was a great opportunity to work on their M&A team and do a few deals outside the U.S. In the Americas. So I moved down to Brazil for a few years for them. Worked on a large deal down there where we bought the brewing assets from FEMSA, which is a Coke bottler that had a bunch of breweries.
So wait,
loved it.
Heineken is a German company, yeah?
Heineken's Dutch.
Okay.
A Dutch company, second largest brewer in the world. And there was a lot of M&A activity happening in sort of 2005 through 2015, at first with large breweries and then with craft breweries all around the world.
Yeah, I mean, that 2005 timing is a pretty interesting time just in the history of the world itself. I mean, You've got YouTube comes out that same year, year after Google buys them.
Right.
The year after that, iPhone 1 comes out.
Right.
And there's the whole craft beer movement that was sort of
very nascent at that stage. Yeah.
Brewing, right?
Yeah.
Like, pardon the pun, it's like everything was happening.
Right.
So did you just gravitate that way because of opportunity, or did you actually have your finger on the pulse and you thought beverages, that's where that's at?
I think, no, I think looking backwards, it looks like a very well planned out career path. But no, I just really, I really enjoyed the industry and I thought there was a big opportunity there. I left Heineken after about 2 years and opened up my own brewery in New York, right as everything was starting to take off. I think we were my partner and I had started it. We were maybe the fourth brewery in New York, and now there's about 50. And so there's an incredible amount of growth happening all around the country in craft beer.
Yeah. Where did you do that in New York?
In the Bronx.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you learn from doing that?
Everything. I made every mistake possible, from how to release products to how to brand it. And so it's just an incredible experience. We operated our own brewery. We had co-packers. And so huge experience in terms of, it was my first time running a company or sitting alongside someone and running it with them. So huge experience in everything from operating a manufacturing facility to starting growing a team and leading a team to building and marketing a brand.
Yeah, say more about that. I mean, a lot of people who watch and listen to the show, they're in the trenches with us, right?
Yeah.
They're building their thing, and depending on where you are in the process, they're either feeling the pain that you felt, or they're celebrating some small victories. But say more about that experience. It's fascinating, and I would guess that it's sort of a, you've taken all these case studies and parlayed them each time into these new ventures.
Yeah, I think for us, we were seeing the amount of new breweries come on. When we started, there were about 1,500 breweries across the U.S., and now there's over 10,000, right? And so we started seeing all these breweries come on.
Were they East Coast or West
everywhere.
Coast, or spread
Everywhere, spread across. California was a big part of it to start, but the East Coast really started coming on hot in 2010s. And I think what we saw is, every brewery out there has 1, 2, 5 IPAs, and there's now 10,000 of them. We can't have the best one. We can make a great one, but it's kind of hard to claim you have the best one when there's, tens, if not hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
So we've got to do something different than just differentiate on product, right? We've got to think about, what does our portfolio look like? We've got to think about, how is our brand different? We're in an urban area where most breweries aren't. So how do we think, right in the middle of New York City, how do we think about it differently? How do we create a different experience for people? We had our brewery underneath the Amtrak train tracks, like very different experience right in the South Bronx for people coming. And I think it really struck a chord with folks.
Yeah. So talk more about how you approach brand building, because that's kind of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, we started, thinking about community and people that were there and people that would come, and what kind of beer do they want? What kind of brand do they want that will speak with them? I think it's something that we've done, or I've done in every role I've been in beverages. Beverages are such a huge part of people's lives, right? I mean, back from my first work at Heineken, right? That green can with the red star, that's a badge that says something about you.
I have to be honest here. So I'm a beer drinker. I love beer. I had no idea Heineken was Dutch.
Yeah.
So, is that a branding problem? 'Cause I thought it was German.
No, I don't think it's a brand problem. I don't think they particularly brand themselves as Dutch. They brand themselves as international. Think about the Most Interesting Man in the World campaign. They brand themselves as a international company. You drink this if you are a man of the world.
Yeah. Well, I'm also thinking about Dos Equis, which...
sorry, that was Dos Equis, which Heineken now owns. Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they really brand themselves as like this big, huge international brand.
Yeah. Okay, so let's stay on branding. People come to this series to learn about how to build their brand. It's called Behind the Brand.
Right.
Let's step back a second, zoom out a little, and define what is a brand. Chris Gallant's definition.
Oh, great question. I've never been asked to define a brand before. I think a brand is an entity in and of itself that means something to people. It means something to the founder, to the company. It means something to its audience, and you've got to find what that meaning is, and it's got to be something important to the people that consume your product.
Yeah, I think that's a good definition. I've interviewed like over 500 people who are running brands. I've talked to some of the iconic thought leaders in the space. Here's kind of a distillation of what they've said.
Okay.
A brand is a shorthand for what you stand for. Imagine, a new 007 movie comes out.
Mm-hmm.
Before even seeing the trailer, you kind of know what you're going to expect, right? There's going to be some martinis, shaken not stirred. There's going to be some sort of amazing car, maybe an Aston Martin, but maybe something new in the mix. But there's going to be a fast car. There's going to be some beautiful people, maybe some violence. There's going to be a plot that probably ends with the hero having some sort of resolution, having gone through something difficult, right? You can imagine what that is. And so a brand is distinct. A brand stands for something. And then after you release it out into the wild, the consumers, whatever touch points you have, you give it to the people, and then they form their own opinions, right? And decide whether or not what you have said it stands for actually holds up, whether that aligns. And so potentially, Chamberlain Coffee has millions of customers. You could have millions of opinions about what Chamberlain Coffee brand is that lives in the hearts and minds of the people who drink it or consume it, buy it. So it's fun, dynamic, but always a moving target.
Yeah, and I'd say the piece I'd add to that is this connection, this meaning piece, because what I've done many times is develop a brand with my team and put it out, and no one cares. It doesn't connect with them the right way.
Yeah.
And so, what we try to do.
Well, which brand was that? Let me ask you that.
I can't say. No, we've done that many times with brands or sub-brands or things we're working on. What I've learned is you've got to connect with the consumer along the way and figure out what is it they're looking for, right? And that can be done by third-party research, sure, but you've got to get out there and talk to the consumer and try to understand early stages. How are they reacting to your brand? What do they think about the brand? Product as well. You got to understand what they're thinking about the product, but brand as well. Like, is this resonating to you? Does this mean what I think it means to you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you sort of said that right out of the gate with setting up your Queens brewery or,
Bronx. Yeah,
in the Bronx. Yeah. And I imagined the train tracks there and the sound like coming by every 15 minutes, like loud.
Yeah.
There's street noise. And like, that's a vibe, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what you said was you were trying to figure out what the people want first. And I think a lot of marketers or founders, they have the wrong order of operations. A lot of times, I've been guilty of this too, which is you come up with this great idea. You're like, I'm going to make this, right? And you take all this time and energy and probably money too, and then you put it out there in the world, and it's like it misses the mark.
Right.
And so why is that? And I think a lot of the reason is you didn't identify a demand first.
Right.
You didn't know what the people wanted first. You didn't listen. You didn't do the proper research or even see if there's like a minimum viable audience for this. You just had this great idea, which you thought was going to pop, and you put it out there and it didn't. And so, like, if you're wondering why your stuff is not working, there's probably one or two things at play. One is you're not speaking to the right audience yet. You haven't found the demand, the people clamoring for it, or your stuff's not as good as you think it is.
Yeah.
And you need to improve it.
I mean, look, there's a lot of great products that maybe solve a problem that doesn't exist, right? And I think that's an issue too, right? You've got this problem that you think, whether it's a brand problem or a product problem, you have something out there that you think people are really rooting for, they're designing for. You put it out there and they just don't want it. It's not something they need, not something they're willing to pay for.
Yeah, or there's so much of it that you just sort of become this commodity, which is, if we're talking about coffee, that's a really competitive space to be in.
Very competitive, yeah.
When you've got these blue chip brand competitors, and then you have sort of what I guess happened in the old days of like brewing. A lot of people have jumped into that, custom coffee market.
Right.
Yeah. I want to go back to the ideas that didn't work. And I ask about failures, the F word, with context, because some people will say, well, failure is not an option here.
Failure is the only option.
Right?
Right? That's how you learn.
It's the only way. Right. And it's so ironic that people are like, try to avoid it. Of course, no one starts something to fail, but it's like, if there's not, I don't want to live in a world where I can't make mistakes. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is impossible as a human, but like, I don't even want to be held to that standard. It's like, you start anything and, you start learning right away if you're paying attention or listening to people, right? So that failure process. So let's go back to the brands that you put out there that didn't work.
Right.
Tell a few of those stories.
Yeah, let's see. We did a sub-brand of our brewery in the Bronx, and, we did a lot of research, tried to figure out what the taste profile was. A light beer when all the craft breweries were making. This is before people really started getting into Pilsners and Helles and, golden ales again. And so this is probably 2014, 15. And we, said, hey, we think this is going to pop off. This is going to be the next big beer category, which it was. But we didn't have, I think the liquid it came up with was great, but we didn't have the right brand wrapped around it. And we introduced it to market in the wrong way. We shoved it down people's throats. And I think we would have done a little bit differently. We would have not done a sub-brand. We would have created just a different beer. We weren't ready. We saw what brand companies like 805 had done.
Okay.
805, which is part of Firestone Walker. That's a great brand.
Yeah.
Costs a lot of money to build that up, and they build it up really slow too.
What aren't they out of like San Diego?
Firestone Walker's out of Paso Robles.
Okay, but the 805 brand didn't it start like in the San Diego area?
I think it started. I mean, they have Firestone Walker has some other breweries around here. They have one here in Venice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not an aficionado, but
Yeah.
that was my perception because I thought, well, anyway.
Yeah, so we went too fast. We went too broad with not enough money and a brand that was, it was too perfect. Like it was too refined for a craft brewery. And so there's a lot of mistakes in branding. You know, that's an example of having a great liquid being on the right trend, but just not launching it in the right way.
And were you trying to get to retail? What was the?
Yeah, we were trying to push towards retail. You know, in the beer industry, especially in New York City, half of it is on premise or half of it is bars and restaurants as well.
Yeah, so there's like a
different. Yeah,
is it like a wholesale?
Yeah, you go through wholesale. Exactly, you go through wholesale distributors into bars and wholesale distributors into chains.
Yeah, and then nationwide it looks a little bit different, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, building up a beer company nationwide is tough because of the 3-tier system. You have to go state by state by state, right? Unlike now, where we're nationwide, right? We sign up a broadline distributor like a KHE or UNFI, and then we go broad. We go everywhere because they can distribute across state lines. So a little bit easier.
Yeah. Unpack 3-tiered system for everybody else.
Yeah, a 3-tier system is a system that exists customers, wholesalers, and producers. So back from the days of Prohibition, this is what exists. And you, as a brewer or as a winemaker or as a spirits maker, you can't sell directly to customers or directly to retailers. Mm-hmm. So a whole lot of caveats in there on a state-by-state basis, but that's basically how it works. You've got to sell through a wholesaler.
Yeah, and it's to protect the industry, really, right?
I think that's the intent.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
Okay. So you learned some valuable lessons.
Right.
Making craft beer. You had a winner. You tried to create a second SKU, basically.
Yeah.
Designed for a specific audience, and it failed. Mm-hmm. So you sort of diluted your full energy, took your eyes off the prize, and you consider that now this lesson learned. Is there ever a time when that makes sense to, create a new SKU, new product iteration? I know.
Yeah, I think it made sense. I still think we should have done it. I think we should have done it differently. I think that category is taking off. I think the liquid is great. We should have done it differently. We should have had, like I said, instead of a sub-brand, we should have just had our brand, and we should have had it be another SKU instead of creating a whole nother brand to live with under it.
Oh, yeah. I guess I misunderstood what sub-brand meant.
So we created a sub-brand to live underneath our Bronx Brewery brand. And
yeah, so separate. Bronx Brewery has a separate name.
Yeah, and we had built up all this awareness.
Yeah, so you left all the equity on the table.
Yeah, and it's silly to do something different looking back on that. But yeah, like I said, it was the right product, right time, and it's poor execution.
Yeah. So what other lessons have you brought then from that craft beer experience down to Chamberlain Coffee?
Yeah, I think there's quite a bit. We use that when we think about how do we launch. I think the other piece is getting it on shelf is often easy, right? Getting it to pull off a shelf is the hard part. And so you've got to have the right strategy in place to make sure your velocity is moving at the right speed. So brand awareness is great. And that's what being a talent-led brand can do. And my partner can bring tons of awareness to our brand. But we've got to get more people buying it and pulling it off a shelf. And so you have to, even if you're a talent-led brand like we are, you've got to continue to do the regular nuts and bolts that any food, beverage, CPG brand does. So we've got to do promotions to get people that haven't heard of us before to say, hey, this is on discount. Let me buy a can. Let me sample it. And then they come back and buy it again. Or you've got to have an off-shelf display. So you've got to send out thousands and thousands of shippers that can sit on the floor to interrupt people's flow in the grocery store and say, oh, hey, new product, let me try it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that I want to ask. Let's, again, zoom out a little bit and introduce or reintroduce your influencer partner.
Yes.
The woman behind the brand, the name of the brand, and talk a little bit about that experience. How you met, how did you come to agree to basically be at the helm and lead this charge?
Sure.
I mean, obviously you're qualified for it, but like talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so the brand is Chamberlain Coffee. It was founded by Emma Chamberlain, who is a YouTube star and is now a podcaster, does a number of different things, but this is her sole venture. She loves coffee. It was in all of her videos before she started it. So it was this real authentic sense to the brand, that it wasn't a celebrity slapping their name on something. And it wasn't. She started this, from day one on her own. There was something there. She brought in a venture studio to then help her build out the brand and, fill in all the key roles, of which I was one of them. And I was, I was working in kombucha at the time, which as a consumer I love, but the category is small and was shrinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, hey, I need to think about going into something that's big, right? Something that's growing, something where there's a ton of white space from a brand perspective and a format perspective. And, these guys called and I took a look at it and said, look, the coffee is huge, coffee is growing, and people are using it different now, right? It's not just black coffee in the morning. People are drinking it lots of different occasions and lots of different forms.
There's espressos, there's cold coffee,
Exactly. And if you look at what Starbucks is doing, they're transforming all their cafes to be cold first, right? 75% of the drinks they sell are cold. If you look at Dutch Brothers, which tends to skew to a younger audience, it's north of 85% of their drinks are cold, right? So there's just all this space that we can do from a product perspective, right? And then if you walk down the coffee aisle, everything is brown or drab colors, and there's all these things we can do from a brand perspective to be different, to interact with that younger consumer. And the grocery stores are desperate for that, because this is the next generation of consumers. Like, they're all trying to fight to win that consumer to make their store, their grocery store. And so there's this huge opportunity there. And so I saw that. Then I met Emma, and I met the team, and I met the venture team behind it, and everyone's great. Everyone's marching in the same direction. So it was real aligning of the stars.
Yeah, my personal opinion and impression of Emma Chamberlain is, first of all, she's 22, 23 years old, very young, but probably one of the most authentic YouTubers, traditional vloggers from like back in the day. If we're making comparisons, it's like very Casey Neistat authentic.
Right.
She had this incredible connection, I think maybe unparalleled, even more compelling or more loyal than Casey fans. She's just someone who had this unique way of connecting with her people. I mean, she has this video titled and I'm not getting the title exactly straight, but it's just like, "Oh, you caught me making soup," right?
I've seen that one. Yeah.
It's like, okay, today I'm reading the dictionary, and like people will just flock and want to be there and have 6 or 8 million views. And she, I think, has this uncanny way of just being able to be herself on camera, which is, from someone who does this regularly, it's extremely hard to do. And so I'm giving props to her abilities to be so authentic. And I want to use that word authentic because I think it rolls over into how I see the Chamberlain brand. Here she is, someone who's drinking coffee throughout her whole thing. And it was well established that was kind of her thing.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you introduce a Chamberlain brand coffee, and it's like, oh, yeah, that totally makes sense. There was no like bolting it on or no integration, no like, where did this come from? It was like such a natural, authentic, smooth evolution that it just made perfect sense.
I think that's so important, because I think especially this younger generation of consumers can see through celebrities slapping their name on something. Can see through, does this person really use this product, right? Does this world-class athlete really drink this sugar-filled drink? Like, probably not, right?
And are you talking about Prime? Are you calling
I'm not calling out no, I'm not calling out any brands, right? But like, I think it's so,
Chris, it's okay. It's okay. No.
I think it's so important to have that level of authenticity there, because she drinks our coffee. It's her coffee, right? She made it. And it's so important because these consumers can see right through it.
Yeah, agree. So we sort of unintentionally threw the brothers or the brother who is involved with making Prime. I think, the Paul brothers are amazing in their own right for doing that, even though Prime is terrible for you and it's not particularly good tasting drink, in my opinion. But so important, I think, for the influencer space to take notes. That's such a case study of using your influence to create something, disrupt a market that, let's face it, Gatorade had a stronghold, throat hold on for so long. And now I think that brand is probably in the B with billions.
Yeah, they quickly got over 10% of the market. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, you're right. I would not make a drink with sucralose, but the ability to get 10% of a mature market that quickly is incredible.
So. It is, yeah. They deserve props, and I think they'll probably just continue on this hockey stick up. The other brand that's worth mentioning, I think, is Mr. Beastables, another classic case study. But those three are probably, like the triad of champions. You have Emma with coffee, you have Mr. Beast with chocolate, and you have the Paul brothers basically doing Prime. Those are standouts today. And I think they're pioneers in many ways, paving the way for new generations of people with influence to create authentic brands, or at least use their celebrity or their influence to create their own companies. I think this is a great model. Instead of doing, it's great to have, let's face it, Mercedes-Benz come and right. They can become your sponsor, and it's great to drive their cars, but it's not yours. You're never going to get to maybe design, what the hubcaps, the wheel caps look like, or how many cc's it's got. But when you're running Chamberlain Coffee, you can decide whether you're going to do matcha or not, or if you're going to do a cold brew or not. Or I would assume that, and I've heard Emma talk about it a little bit, that she is very hands-on with all of it.
She is, yeah.
Yeah. Talk about how it is working with someone of influence, because you've got the business experience, the acumen, the clout. She's got the inspiration, the vision. She's got the audience, the attention. How does that work?
Yeah, I think the three brands that you mentioned, us and Prime and Feastables, what I know about these three brands are their founders and sort of their talent partners are heavily involved in the business, not just the marketing arm, right? They're involved in creative strategy. They're involved in product strategy. They're involved from a board level. So having that level of involvement is going to be key for any of these brands.
Yeah, this is not UTA, talent agency coming in and saying, here's what you're going to do.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are driving the bus together.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. She, like I said, she's involved in all those ways, right? I think the way that most consumers see it, right, is marketing arm, right? But there is, like I said, creative direction and creative strategy. There is, board work, right? There is strategic product roadmaps, and then there's just day-to-day stuff. So I think, for any, talent that's looking to get into this, they've got to understand, if they want to be successful, just how much time they're going to have to dedicate to this. Even if they hire out a whole team, it's going to require a lot of time.
How many people are on the team?
We right now are about 20 people.
Okay.
So still pretty lean.
Yeah. And so what percentage of that is, let's say, marketing? And maybe creative rolls up under marketing.
Yeah, we have 4 people in marketing right now. We have 4 people in marketing, but we also outsource some work too. So we outsource to agencies that have been with us since day one, because I like, for example, paid media. I like my paid media guys to also work on other clients so they can understand what's happening in the broader market and then bring those lessons back to us.
Well, there's also buying efficiencies if they're already buying millions of dollars worth.
Yes. But all the creative we like to do, we have to have that internal. That has to be with, Emma and our creative director and our head of brand. All of that stuff needs to be internal.
So then I'll ask, what is the Emma Chamberlain coffee brand?
Right. I think the Emma Chamberlain coffee brand is something that is cold brew first, right? 'Cause that's how our consumers drink it. It's something that is high quality, and it's something that is approachable, both in the product itself and in the way we talk to people and the way we approach your consumers. I think too much of coffee before we came on the scene was this third wave of coffee, right? And that was like in my craft beer days, like the flannel shirt and mustache crowd, right? The guys that wanted to come in and talk about the province of the hops. Our consumers at Chamberlain Coffee don't care about that. They care about the fact that we are creating a incredibly high quality, sustainably sourced product, but they want to interact with the brand in a different way than, say, a millennial consumer did.
Okay, I'm going to push back a little bit. So I'm Starbucks, the biggest player on the block, and I'm going to say the exact same thing that you do.
Mm-hmm.
Our quality is unmatched. You know, we source it from, I don't know where they source it from these days. The hills of Colombia.
Right.
And we inspect every bean because we can. We're Starbucks. We spend, 1,000 times more than...
If you've been to their roasteries, if you've been to, their facilities, they're incredible.
Yeah.
They're way nicer than anything we'll ever be able to.
So what is distinct then about the Chamberlain coffee brand? Because I think and I'm asking this sort of rhetorically, but I want to flesh this out because it's really important, because a lot of us who are building new products or services, we start talking about, how many cc's our engine has and the new leather seats, and or it's a phone and it's like, this year it's titanium.
Yeah.
And you're going, okay. And right. So for the other thing that a brand does is it can command a premium. Now, if I think about like your Erewhon activation and I see a line out the door of Erewhon to meet Emma or try Chamberlain coffee, that's proof you've got a brand.
Right.
Because people will wait around the corner, right, to either buy the product at a premium. It's not the cheapest. That's not what you're going for. It's at a premium, and that's what brands can do. That's why Chanel is still in business, and Louis Vuitton is still in business, and Mercedes-Benz and all these other premium brands that people want to pay more for or stand in line. So, like, what is distinct then?
Yeah, great question. I think the way in which we engage with our consumers is distinct. Whether that's the color palette we use, the little animals we choose to put on there, or how we literally engage with them through social media, through our customer service team, through the press that we choose to have. The way in which we talk to them is very different. And the way they talk back to us is very different. So if you take a look at our engagement rates, they're higher than any beverage brand I've ever seen. We're to have engagement rates on social media of 5 to 7%.
Yeah.
Because people want to tell us how they're feeling, what they think. It's not all good. Sometimes it's bad. Hey, I didn't have a great experience here, or I really want to have this product that you guys don't have, or you're not shipping to my country. But people love to engage with us, and I think that really sets us apart.
I think that's cool. I would say that's definitely an unfair advantage you have, because, Starbucks as a brand, people usually don't like to engage with brands.
Mm-hmm.
They're inhuman, for one thing. It's hard to engage with them, right? It's like,
Right.
Plus, being the biggest player in the room, they probably don't care as much. Of course, there's other people that have huge brands that do it really well. I'm thinking of, like, even the McDonald's brand, social these days is really on point.
Yeah.
Or Taco Bell has a quick wit, or Wendy's, has historically, like, clapped back at people.
Wendy's is great. Yeah.
They're on it, right?
Media.
So, but I guess I want to understand, like, let's get into the nitty gritty of, you talked about the creative department and, like, Emma wanting to choose the colors and little animals and even the font. So, like, the one thing a brand is not your logo, right? But design and creative and all that sort of flows from the tone of the brand and what you want to stand for, and it's a way to differentiate yourself. So, what is that process like? Like, choosing the font for the packaging, choosing the colors. Walk us through that process. What was that like?
Yeah, we knew we wanted to do something that, let me take a step back. When we first came out, this sort of bright color palette wasn't quite, there were some spots in the grocery store it was. If you go to the grocery store now, or better yet, if you go to Expo West, the biggest food show.
We were just there.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Then, you'll, here in California, you'll see our color palette replicated across multiple categories now, right? And so we were pretty deliberate about going in and saying, we need something that's going to signify we're a different type of coffee brand. When we get on shelf, because at the time we were direct to consumer only, but when we get on shelf, we need to stand out against what everyone else is doing.
All the brown packaging.
Right.
Yeah.
We've got to have the basics on there, right? We've got to make sure that we have the roast profile in the upper left-hand corner, right? So when it's sitting on a shelf, consumers will see that. We need to make sure that we have all the FDA requirements on the bag. But how do we work around that to create a story, right? To signify, hey, this is Emma. So there'll be a note from Emma on it. There'll be a little story about a character on there. There's an unbelievable amount of time thinking about, hey, this is cake batter. What's a funny animal? What's an apt animal to go with cake batter? We have an otter on there with a cake resting on its belly, right? Like, how do we create these little moments that consumers like really think about, say, oh, like it grabs their eye? Because, we have a lot of brand awareness, but there's also most people that are walking down the coffee aisle that have never heard of us. So we need to, grab their attention in a half a second that they're going to scan by our bag.
Yeah. Can you weigh in on another celebrity coffee that I've seen in the aisles lately? He makes superhero movies. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And it's totally uncharacteristic of coffee packaging. It's the Happy brand, right?
I think it's a great brand, right? I think he's taken a similar approach in terms of packaging that's very different, right? It doesn't look like coffee packaging. It's bright colors. It's a white background.
Yeah.
So I really think it stands out.
Can you tell everyone who we're talking about?
Robert Downey Jr. Yeah.
I think that packaging is a mistake, actually.
Tell me why. Because it doesn't say coffee.
First of all, it's not authentic. I don't know Robert Downey Jr. as a coffee drinker.
Mm-hmm.
Side note, I know he sings. That's like off the beaten path of what I know about him, that he doesn't is like, he's a pretty legit singer.
Okay.
And so coffee, no. Emma, absolutely. If you're paying attention or you're an Emma fan, you know that Emma and coffee go together like peanut butter and jelly. But Robert Downey and coffee, not so much. And so like the packaging is such a departure. I mean, what does it look like? It looks like baby formula to me, right?
It's different.
I missed it.
It's different than what's in the aisle.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the packaging.
Okay.
I haven't tasted it. I'm sure it's wonderful, considering the resources he probably has behind it. But I question the authenticity, like how involved is he really? And I don't love the packaging.
Okay.
Yeah. But I do like the Chamberlain coffee.
Well, thank you.
I think it's, it reminds me of? It's like indie coffee.
Yeah.
It's got like an indie vibe.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I think the intent was to do something, again, different than what's out there, to have a connection, to have a story about the brand on the packaging.
Yeah.
To really make sure we stood out and we made people stop, right? You don't see any, at least I can't think of any other coffee out there that has, an otter or a squirrel or a mouse with glasses on its packaging. So it's really, look, none of those animals scream coffee, but that's not the intent. The intent is to stop people in their tracks and get them to try to have a connection with the brand.
Yeah. Again, it's not too far of an extension of who Emma is as a person. She's known for the signature glasses, right?
Right.
And she, this is just my opinion of her. I look at her, she's of that generation, right? She's Gen Z. She's 20-something. And she's sort of got that indie, emo, introvert, awkwardness, but perfectly okay with it in public. I am who I am. But that's sort of her vibe anyway, right?
Yeah, I think she connects with consumers and connects with her audience in a big way because of that, because not just her authenticity with the coffee brand, but her authenticity with her own brand, right?
Yeah. So how do you think about product market fit or minimum viable product?
Yeah.
Like, in a way, you're competing with Starbucks and all the other brands, but in a way, you're not, right? It's like you only need the right amount of shelf space or direct-to-consumer sales to make this thing go. And then it's usually just a last man standing contest, right? Like, if you just keep going in the right directions.
Yeah. Look, maybe I can tell you about another mistake instead.
Yeah.
We didn't think enough about product market fit, and we came out with our first ready-to-drink product in a can, right? We went into Walmart. They've been a great partner for us. We were in 4,000 stores, and we developed a product internally. Much like my mistake before, developing a brand internally. We tested with everyone who told us who was going to tell us they loved the product. And we loved the product, but the Walmart consumer did not like the product. It wasn't sweet enough, right?
Okay.
And so it had 1 gram of sugar. And, consumers told us they wanted less sugar. I drink my coffee black. And so it was a great product. It didn't fit in that channel.
Yeah.
Failed miserably. Walmart was a great partner and said that we worked with them to say, hey, all right, now like where do we go from here? We reformulated. We used a different type of milk, and we put more sugar and more sweetness in there.
Tell people who don't know, like maybe the inside track of that deal. Was that sale on wheels? Like you sold it in and it didn't sell very well? Did they recall it? Like, did they say buy it back from us?
We sold through most of it, and then we wound up taking some of it off the shelf.
Yeah.
And we put in this sweeter product, which is actually doing really well now. And then we took a look and said, I mean, look, we still really believe in this product. We want to find a home for it.
How long did it stay on shelves to give it a chance? Was that time?
I think we knew from again, our consumers love to interact with us, and when they don't like a product, they like to let us know too. And so they let us know this wasn't a great product. They didn't want this.
Was that like 2 weeks, 8 weeks?
Yeah, I mean that was
3 months.
Let's see. By the time we rushed, and by the time we swapped out the product, that we launched it in April, and we had a new product on shelf by October. So we went very quickly.
So 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah.
And we knew within 2 months that we needed to start reformulating.
Because the sales are probably not where they usually
exactly.
are. Okay.
And so we reformulated, put a new product out there. Consumers love that one. And then again, we loved this product. We had to find the right channel for it. And so the Whole Foods team said, hey, we'll take it. We think our consumers will love it. So we put it in Whole Foods, and it's doing, I think last time I looked, like 4 to 5x what it was doing in Walmart.
Is this the 1 gram?
This is the 1 gram of sugar product. Right?
Okay. Yeah, so that goes back to what I said initially, right? You have 1 or 2 problems. Either your stuff's not good enough, or if it's good enough, you're just talking to the wrong audience.
Exactly.
So it was not Walmart, it was Whole Foods.
Exactly.
I love that.
It made us think a lot about channel strategy, actually. I think we're like, which products we want in which channels. And then we took that back to the rest of our products, because we also have dry coffee, right? We have beans. And we started saying, okay, like, we all love light roast coffee, but the American consumer loves dark roast. And so why are we selling our light roasts in some of these stores? We put in the dark roast and it sells a lot better. Hey, our consumers online tend to buy a lot of vanilla flavored coffee, but we're putting our unflavored coffee on shelf. Like, let's start testing out some of this. And so we went back and started like really looking at each channel, right? Whether it's flavored, unflavored, roast profile, ground, whole bean, and really started refining our portfolio based on the channel.
How flexible are the buyers at these big stores? I mean, you talk about Costco or Walmart or Whole Foods. I mean, these are giants.
Yes.
And maybe there's not a lot of flexibility. Are they pretty? Tell us how it works.
I think if you developed a good relationship with the buyer, and you can bring a good rationale for why I think, hey, this dark roast is going to move faster than this light roast, most of them are willing to work with you to swap it out mid-set. And
do you do like a little test? Like, I'm just thinking about Costco. They have all those people, bless them. They're out there handing out the free samples.
Yeah.
Do you do stuff like that to test, or?
We can, I think Costco is its own unique beast, right? Because you're shipping in truckloads. But, if you're talking about like a Walmart or Target, you can start thinking about, all right, let's this is our hypothesis. Let's test it out in this region with your DC in this region. Let's start shipping this coffee instead of this coffee, and then let's see if it works.
Yeah. And then you have some backup plan if it doesn't. So, hey, if it doesn't work at Walmart, we can always back channel it to Whole Foods. They'll take, because we know this is a proven winner there.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. I mean, there's not always a perfect plan B, but we always try to come up with it.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, like, how often are you testing now new things? So maybe you have this great new idea. I'm making this up.
Yep.
This is my thought. All right, we're going to add a little maple syrup, like a drop of maple syrup to or hazelnut, whatever. It's a new flavor. How often are you innovating now?
Yeah, we have 3 distinct product lines. We have matcha, we have dry coffee, and we have ready-to-drink products. And so we have 3 supply chains to manage, and my supply chain team is 4 people. So we are...
So not very often.
So we'll do a lot of innovation right now within flavor profiles. I think for brand new products, it's tough. But within flavor profiles, what we think about is, look, if it's going to be a limited time drop, let's come up with something crazy that we love, and we can put it out there. If we want to come up with a new product that's going to sit on the 12,000 doors that we're in right now, we should probably do some consumer testing and make sure it flows through okay.
Mm-hmm. What's something you decided not to do, either as a flavor profile or as a product? I'm thinking about my buddy Laird Hamilton, who's doing really well with his Laird Superfoods.
Right.
And they're staying in their lane. It's basically what Laird likes to drink,
Right.
and a little something extra. But it's like, they don't have 50 SKUs. It's like very sort of targeted. What haven't you done? Decided not to do.
Great question. One of the things that we were pushing where we tested out, but it just didn't work was pods, coffee pods or K-cups. So we tested that out and we didn't have a strong consumer reaction to that. So we've decided to not move forward with it.
And why do you think that is? I've heard the same kind of thing just as a consumer, like, the pods are sort of unhealthy because they might have the parabens or whatever they have in it. Like the packaging is not healthy, and pods in general are sort of having a bad day.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it was I mean, look, we found packaging that was sustainable. It was compostable, so it worked for us. I think the challenge we found is consumers didn't want them, and it had to be the occasion, right? And so again, our consumers aren't drinking hot coffee right in the morning; they're drinking cold drinks throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that there's a lot of work happening right now. With how do you create a K-cup machine that can work for an iced or a cold brew product, but by and large, like, I think it's mostly used for hot. And so our consumers, 90% of them are drinking cold. They didn't want pods.
Yeah. Yeah. Give us an idea of, like, gross revenues. Like, what can you tell us? Like, how big is the company today?
I'm definitely not going to tell you that.
But, give us are we talking about, like, is it a $100 million company? Is it a $10 million? Like, what's the growth been from when you started?
Yeah.
And how is it today? Give us like a little forecast.
Yeah. Well, I started very early on, so it was very small. And I'll tell you the number that Forbes quoted in an article last month was 20 million.
Okay. And do you have projections of, like, are you running the tortoise's race slow and steady, or you're like, nope, we're doing deals and that number is going to, like, 10x in 24 months, or how do you think about growth?
We're trying to balance it out because beverage is a very expensive endeavor, right? To be able to build up inventory, to be able to pay for the trade that we talked about. So we want to make sure that we grow fast and that we can meet demand. We just changed our entire supply chain across those three different pieces to be able to meet capacity. But we don't want to go so fast that when we're in stores, we can't support them, right? We don't want to go so fast that we get out ahead of our skis on that. So we want to have a balanced approach. So yes, I think we would absolutely love to be 10x, but we got to be careful about how we get there.
And so then, do you have to manage Emma as well? Like, don't talk about it as much, or like how much behind the scenes, like, on the marketing side, like, hey, like, pump the brakes, babe.
I don't think we would ever say that. I don't think we're ever saying, like, hey, let's pump the brakes on brand awareness, so let's pump the brakes. It's just being really thoughtful about, hey, we have this opportunity of another 300 store chain. Right? Do we have the people to help support that? Do we have the dollar resources to help to support that, to drive it? Do we have the capacity, which we now do? We start to ask those questions when we start to take on new places.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's really another unfair advantage of having her in your toolkit, right, as a partner, because if you need to bring the heat, right, it's like Taylor Swift's going to drop a new album. She doesn't need to go to, a magazine or a radio. She just posts it on Instagram.
Right.
Rings a dinner bell. Come get it, And so in the same way, you got the same power and abilities. I'm thinking about activations too. I mean, do you want to talk about what's happening with a big retailer coming up? We talked about off camera.
No, I don't think we won that yet. So we'll hold that. Yes, okay. But we almost just won a big retailer.
Yeah. So I'll mention another case study that I know of.
Sure.
I just talked to Jake, who runs Midday Squares.
Mm-hmm. Love that brand.
Great brand, right? And they just did this big activation at a Costco in Canada, I think. And what Jake is known for is his activations and his creative thinking and how to get people excited. I mean, what you need to do whenever you get into a Whole Foods or you get into a big retailer is you need to bring the heat. You need to bring the thunder, bring the noise. And so if you're able to make a good impression, sell through that first, batch that you promised will, that you got sold in, then there's likely going to be repeat orders and then you're sort of on your way, right?
Right. I mean, velocity is key, right? Especially right off the bat, getting the right velocity in there. I think the other thing that's key is getting new consumers in. right? And so I think what retailers really want is not just for you to go in and someone to buy your product instead of a different one, right? They want incremental dollars coming into the store, right?
Well, yeah.
So that's the other data point. It's like, how fast did you sell it through? And then what happened to the whole category overall when you went in? Did the whole category get a lift? And some of the data points that we have is, we're bringing a huge number of new consumers into the store, right?
Right.
Some of these consumers have never bought a product in, retailer X, or have never bought a beverage product in retailer X. So those are new dollars coming into the category. It's not just trade-offs.
Yeah, and it could mean, like, if you're a subscription-based store, it could be new subscribers.
Yeah.
New members.
Right.
It can mean, if I go in for Emma's Coffee, I walk out with a sleeve of bagels.
Right.
Right? Those just totally off category, but complimentary to coffee or whatever. Yeah, that's the opportunity. Were you there when she did the whole Erewhon thing and the lines are out the...
Yeah.
Okay, so talk about that. Was that expected?
I don't think we knew what to expect. We knew there would be some folks there, but the first people were there hours before.
Right.
It was like to get a chance to come in. So
a new Apple product came out or something.
Exactly. I think people were very excited to meet her, very excited to try the product. We had a special product that day. So, it's being able to have moments like that to show retailers, hey, this is the sort of people that we're going to bring to your doors. Maybe they weren't here before.
Yeah.
Now they're going to have this experience in your store. They're going to come back. They're going to buy our product, but other products as well.
Yeah. Talk about Erewhon as a partner. Like, they're a very unique, interesting retailer. I mean, they're probably most famous for the Hailey Bieber smoothie. I just offline was doing some research on that smoothie. I think they sell about 40,000 of those a month. And last I counted, Erewhon has 10 or 12 stores.
They have 8.
Oh, they have 8?
They have 8, yeah.
Okay. That's an incredible amount of smoothies a month.
Right.
That's like,
at that price point, right?
Yeah. It's about $1 million a month in just smoothies of the Hailey Bieber variety.
Right.
So talk about them as a partner.
I mean, they've been great. One of the great things about Erewhon is it's a place where people go to discover things. And so as a new brand, it's a great place to be because people are in there wanting to try new things.
And they're not price sensitive, it seems.
They're not price sensitive.
You can get a pineapple for like $81.
Yes. So it's a great place to be if you are a new brand and you want someone to come find you, right? Because most people don't shop just at Erewhon, right? They shop in lots of other places. So it's a great place where they can discover you there and then buy you on their weekly shopping trip to another spot. Yeah.
You also know that it's a great platform or diving board into something new. Are you looking at those types of opportunities to try new things? Or
of course. I mean, Erewhon is a great store to go in if you work in the food and beverage industry to see what's happening. They're so far ahead of the trend on so many things to understand, hey, what adaptogenic ingredients are going to be hot next? What categories are going to be hot next? It's really interesting to see.
Yeah, I think that retailer, compared to many others, is doing so many different things. And if they have 8 stores and they're nimble, they don't have 1,000 stores like some of the other, bigger box retailers. Talk about your marketing. What's the mix look like? You talk about direct to consumer. You have your influencer partner.
Right.
She can, drop a new album and let everyone know. But it's like, I'm sure it's much more traditional and buttoned up. You talk about paid.
Right. We have a couple of different buckets that we focus on, try to get this, for lack of a better term, that's 360 right approach. So we have Emma as a marketing tool, right, to help announce new things, big broad awareness, and we've then used that to translate into our own social media as well. We have a pretty big following to try to engage with consumers and announce.
About how many followers do you have on social?
Just on Instagram, it's about 550,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
YouTube, last I checked, she's right around 12 million.
Yeah. Sorry, that was our followers, not hers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so you've built it off the back of her brand or her name, and that's connected.
So social media is important to us. I think we're still trying to understand TikTok and how that can translate for our brand as well. A lot of brand awareness, but I think how those translate into D2C dollars is, still trying to sort that out.
Yeah, let's dive back into YouTube because you made the distinction. Well, that's her channel, not ours.
Oh, no, we have I meant the 550,000 is our number for Instagram, not her number. So we also have our own YouTube channel as well, which will launch longer form content about our brand.
Yeah.
We have TikTok. So we have social media, right?
Yeah. The brand has a presence.
The brand has a presence on social, and then we also have Emma's presence on social.
Yeah. And how do you coordinate that? Because there must be sort of high walls, or like there's rules probably,
Right.
like this is what we do, what we don't do. What are some of those rules, and then how did you establish them? And I'm only asking that in context of other people who might be working with an influencer of whatever size, right? And even someone who has a personal brand that is thinking about, well, how much do I really like ask my fans to buy something? That's an interesting dynamic too that you've got to be careful of.
Right. You've got to have a. I think we've had to change it up over time, right? It's a constantly evolving thing. So yes, there are rules, but those rules are constantly evolving because you've got to have engaging content. And as much as we love beautiful pictures of our brand, right? If that's all people see time and time again, that's not going to be engaging enough for them. So
well, everyone else is doing that anyway.
Right. And so we have to have those beautiful product shots. We have to have UGC for people to watch and engage with. We have to have fun and funny content. We have to have videos from Emma. So we really try to make it a mix of everything. That mix, what that looks like, shifts over time as we see how people are responding to it. But we've got to try to create as engaging content as possible to make sure people are actually interested in going to our page and clicking on it. So then when we do say we're having a sale, or go to Target and buy this, or hey, we just dropped this new product, that they'll engage.
You have a content calendar? Like, is it seasonal? Like, okay, we're in summer right now.
Yep.
And so people are wanting to drink more cold drinks, or like, we have back to school coming up, guys. Here's what we're going to do.
What we do is we start with thinking about, creative, and we try to be product-led and creative-led, right? And so we start thinking about what products are we going to come out with over the course of the next year, and we try to work 12 months in advance. What products are we going to come out with, and what creative do we want to go along with them? Some of them are more creative than product, some of them more product than creative. But 1 year out, what does that look like? And then as we work back from that, okay, now when do we need to think about photo shoots? When do we need to think about assets for social media, for retailers? And what does that look like in terms of our digital content calendar, but also our retail content calendar, our retention content calendar for email, for everything?
Yeah. And so, there's a traditional marketing number that you spend budget-wise. If according to Forbes, it's $20 million, gross revenue today. What percentage of that number are you spending on marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I look at it in, a couple of buckets, right? So what we talked about is there's social, right? Then there's paid media, and then we have trade marketing for in retail. And then we have earned media with their PR teams. So there's a lot of different buckets that we have. We have activations. One of the most important things I think any food and beverage brand will tell you is sampling, right? I mean, that's when I worked at Red Bull, that was cans in hands, all right? Let's get kids on college campuses, hand them out. Let's get kids driving around in Mini Coopers, handing them out, right? Cans in hands is huge. So we have all these different buckets that we work on, and they're a very big portion of the budget. I think specifically if you look at trade marketing, so marketing that you spend with retailers, most startup F&B brands will tell you that should probably be north of 20% of your retail sales as you get started. I think as you become a more mature brand, right, as you are a Red Bull or a Heineken, that can come down, right, to closer to 10%. But when you kick off, you really need to get people to try the product.
Right. Yeah, because you need to stop them in the aisles.
Yeah.
How difficult is it with shelf space? I mean, are you having to jump through hoops or do more, or the sales are already there, so it's like they give it to you, or?
Yeah, it's the good news is it's a growing category, right? And so shelf space is either staying stable or expanding. And I think we've had a pretty easy time getting on shelves. Right now, it's the focus of, all right, let's make sure everyone in the store who isn't aware of our brand knows about us and tries us. So that goes back to that trade spend and that velocity piece.
What advice can you give to people who are trying to get into retail? What sort of pitch, or what is moving the needle with the buyers?
Right.
Are you saying, we're going to support it with X number of marketing dollars, here's our advertising plan, here's our partner who's a huge influencer? What does that look like?
I think that's all great. There's a lot of people doing that. I would find proof points, right? So if you want to go into or national retailer, try out a smaller retailer. So before we went into Walmart, we were here in Erewhon, we were in Bristol Farms, we were in, which is about a 30-store chain here. In SoCal, we were in Vaughn's Pavilions here, and so we had proof points that the product could move. And so I'd say build up those proof points first. So you're going to a larger retailer and you're saying like, hey, this will move, and it will move. And like we talked about earlier, also to bring new people into the category. So it's going to grow your assortment.
Did you have to show them DTC numbers too?
At the very beginning, yeah.
Was that
That's all we had. We said, hey, like, look, this is the number of people that are buying our product, that are coming back to buy it a second or third or fourth time. And so, yes, when that's all we had, that's what worked to start.
Yeah. Sort of final thoughts and words here. What is your advice to people building a consumer brand with a influencer partner or not?
Final words or final thoughts on that. Make sure that you have an amazing product. Make sure that you have heavy involvement, not just on the marketing side, but heavy involvement in the business from your partner. And make sure you're well capitalized to do it, especially if you're in the food and beverage space.
I mean, we were just sitting back, you know, chopping it up, reminiscing about the good old days and all that. You know, tracking my roots, where I came from and where I'm going. But like I say,